Good morning. My name is Angel, and this is episode 19 of Saying Goodbye, a podcast by yours truly. And there has been a lot of things happening in life to all of us, and I've just been going through a lot of my own trials, like we all do every day. Just when you think you got things figured out, other things happen. There's just been, from the last episode, there's obviously there's been a lot of loss, and another good friend of mine, she passed away, Carmen. And there's a lot of things that happened, and there wasn't a lot of people that were allowed to come or to just be involved with anything. And you gotta respect the family, but a lot of times when people pass, you never know how people are gonna respond. You never know how you're gonna respond. And I always try to give people grace and just allow things to be the way that they are. And today, so let me talk about what it is that I'm doing, and it's that I'm just sharing my experience, my hope, my story, so that maybe if somebody else is going through something, or they think their life is really that bad and they won't be able to make it through, if you can hear my story and it could just inspire you a little bit, to push through and know that you can make it through anything if you just give yourself a chance. It's not going to be easy. Things don't happen like overnight. It takes a lot of years of work, a lot of years of determination, of setting a goal point and moving towards that goal. And a lot of times you don't make it to that specific goal. It just brings you in that direction. And that's okay as long as you're moving forward. And sometimes you got to take a few steps back to regain ground and then to move forward. But today I wanted to talk about like relationships. Excuse me. I wanted to talk about relationships. And definitely like relationships has been something that that I've been thinking about, and I've been thinking about talking about, because there's a lot of friends and a lot of people that I deal with that say, oh, I'm in this relationship. So what kind of relationship am I talking about? I'm talking about all types of relationships, because we have relationships with the people in the rooms. For me, I have a relationship with my therapist. I have a relationship with family members. I have a relationship with friends. They're all different relationships, depending on the family member, depending on the friend, depending on all of that, right? There's relationships that I've built with people, on the internet because of making the videos and people reaching out, and I appreciate all of them. Thank you for inspiring me, leaving a comment. You don't understand how big that is for me, to just have a little conversation, to just talk and say thank you to whoever just takes a minute to listen, and just to get inspired a little bit, just to hear the story and to relate to it and say, man, I could apply that in my life, or I understand what he's saying, and because of his mistakes and what he's been through, I know I need to move in a different route. Anything that helps. And that's all I'm here for. I'm just here to share the truth about what God has done in my life, and the direction that my life has gone since I just took a step back and I just allowed God full control in my life, and just I have done the best that I could with what I got. And sometimes I fall short, sometimes I fail, sometimes I crash and burn, sometimes I cause a disaster in my own life, and I regroup, I figure it out where I went wrong, I hold myself accountable, I make amends if I can, and then I have to keep moving. I'm not gonna sacrifice my time every time, sacrifice myself every time I do something wrong or I fall short. I'm human. And in this human experience, we're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna make poor decisions, bad decisions, we're gonna make no decisions, which is a decision. And that's just the way it is. And you try to learn from what you go through, and you understand like where you're coming up short, what doesn't make you feel good, just your moral compass inside, how things make you feel when you make these decisions. So when I talk about these relationships, being that obviously my first relationships were the most detrimental to my well-being. It was the relationship with my mom, the relationship I never had with my father, that I would imagine, right? I always imagine what that relationship would be like to have a father. And my imagination when I met my father, it fell short. It fell extremely short. I thought that we were gonna like throw the ball around. He was gonna tell me how much he missed me, and that we were just gonna like mesh, and everything was gonna be fine. And the truth is that you hear it said all the time that you don't want to meet your hero. And in my imagination, because of the reality of my relationship with my mother and the reality of the relationship of my life, I understood that reality because I was living it. But I had the imagination of what the relationship was going to be like with my father. And then when I met him, and he said a couple of things to me, like just blaming other people about the relationship and why he wasn't present, or telling me not to let certain people know that, not to let people, like certain people know that we're in contact, like the authorities or something like that, because I was in like foster care and all this stuff. And I didn't understand it, but nonetheless it was said, right? And I was like a 15-year-old kid. I was living in the street. And I just remember like going to summer school because I didn't really do good in school, and I was always like in problems. And I was going to summer school. I was definitely attending summer school to make it through to the 10th grade, to be a sophomore. And like they held me accountable, my father and his wife, and they like held me accountable, like, you a liar, you ain't going to school, I give you money every day. It was like a big thing, like I'm doing all this stuff for you. And in that relationship, man, I really disliked my father. I really disliked him. He was doing something over the summer, and he gave me a place to rest my head for the first time in 15 years, never been around. And he just didn't imagine like what that would be like for me. He didn't imagine like how important it was to like talk to me. Or he would talk to me about, oh, you need to go to school. Excuse me, you need to read, you need to do this. And everything was like I was being spoken at. I wasn't spoken to. I wasn't treated like a person. I wasn't given like that affection, even though he really didn't know me. But it was, for me as a man, it would have been important for me to get to know my son if I didn't know him for that long of a period of time. And in these relationships you develop, you learn how to like move in life. In my relationship with my mom, unfortunately with women, I really didn't trust women. I really didn't think that I could ever find myself to be looking at a woman and say she's trustworthy. And then I began to have relationship with my friends, like Donna, like Roxanne, like Irene, like, like all these women in my life that like I love, that they would call me in the middle of the night and say, hey, Angel, I need something, or I'm in trouble, or can you help me, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna move and I'm gonna go and I will help them with anything, because it wasn't so much that they, what they gave me. It's just the friendship of them being there for me, listening, talking to me, helping me get through things, even if it was simple conversations. But we've been friends for so long, and anytime I call them, anytime we speak, we're like not in, and with some of them I am in everyday communication, and some of them we do text every day, and we're sending positive things to each other, and scripture, and recommendations, and talking about life, and bouncing things off of each other still to this day, since high school. And these are the relationships that I had, that I learned to, like, there was a lot of things that I learned from my mother, watching her get abused by men, physically, emotionally, verbally. There were a couple of things, like in ways with that relationship, I learned that I can't really trust women, at least not that woman. And it was like sweet and sour. It's like my mother, I'm supposed to feel safe, but and then I can't trust her because of the things she's done. And it was like I was caught like between a rock and a hard place. And it was just extremely difficult to navigate that, because I just really wanted to feel safe. I really wanted to be loved. And I just couldn't get comfortable enough because of how badly I've been burned by her. And then I come and I meet my friends, and I want to protect them, right? I want to always look out for them. I always give them the inside scoop with the guys, like, hey, be careful, this is the way certain guys are. And that was the relationship that I had with my friends growing up, man. And I loved them, my female friends. And there's plenty of other female friends that I have that I love to death, man. Like, and there's also a lot of friends that I have fallen outs with. And at that point, for a long time in my life, because I always maintained the relationship with my mother, I really didn't know how to let go of certain relationships that didn't serve me. Relationships that weren't healthy for me. Because for a long period of time, I've been unhealthier longer than I've been healthy. And when I think about that, it's really like sobering. It's sobering to think that I've been negative, and I battle with that every day. That negativity, I always shoo it away, get it away, and I always speak in a positive way, because life and death come from the power of the tongue. What you say, how you say it, to people, you could destroy somebody just by what you're saying to them, or you could speak life into them. And today, by the grace of God, I choose to speak life into people. And I'm not perfect. Sometimes I say some stuff, and then I gotta take it back and say, hey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong for that. And that's the best that I could do. And then I just pick up my stuff and I keep moving, because I'm not gonna sit there and dwell and say, oh, well, I said this to that person and I was mean, and I was, I verbally was disrespectful, and oh my, I messed up. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not, because I'm not gonna hold myself to the standard like I'm perfect. I'm not, and I won't sit here and pretend to be, because I get on, I get on a video or on a podcast, and I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable, because I healed through things, I've worked through things, and I've been through so much in life that I've been afforded the opportunity to have the strength to share, and hopefully just reach people and help somebody else out with the story of my life. And it's a blessing to be able to do that. It's, even if I'm a catalyst and people look at this video and they use it for negativity and they make fun of me because of my shortcomings of what I've been through, it's okay. All of it is okay. It's not welcome, but things happen, right? Not everybody's here to be the best version of themselves. People struggle, and some people can't find the error of their ways, and that's why I share these videos. So hopefully you could catch yourself and what it is, and how you're spiraling out of control in your life, and and catch yourself, and be a better version, and be the best version of you, for yourself, not for nobody else. And that's all I can be, because ultimately I'm the one that feels that I feel good if I'm doing the right things, that I feel bad if I'm not doing the right thing. If I respond in a terrible way and I treat somebody like crap, like that all makes me feel a certain way. It makes me feel, like, man, after all this work that you've done, after all these things that you've been doing, and all this time you've been, like reading your Bible and following God, and just trying to be better in your relationships, and then you revert back to something. And it's a really tough thing, man, to turn the other cheek. It's really tough not to be who you once was. When you try to let go of that person, that ugly person, you know who I'm talking about. When you turn nasty and disrespectful, and you just want to tear everything down, that demolition man and or woman inside of you, that you just want to tear everything down around you. And we're all good at that. I know I'm good at it. Excuse me. Excuse me. I think about, all these relationships, and I think about, like, how they play, like, a major role in my life today. And a lot of relationships I never wanted to let go. I never wanted to let go, an ex-girlfriend or something like that, or maybe like a friend that just really wasn't a good person, and I just really wanted to always be around them. Or a lot of times I would do something wrong to somebody, and sometimes there's no recovering. Once you step on somebody or you betray them in a certain way, sometimes there's no coming back. And even in those relationships, I had to learn to walk away when I was wrong. And if these people do want me in their life, or if they do accept me back into their life, into their lives, there'll be a lot of work that needs to be done until you could get back to trusting, if that's allowed. Sometimes you allow back into somebody's life and they keep you at a distance. We do that, right? You still allow somebody to be around because of the circumstances, but you don't want them too close. You keep them at bay. You keep them right over there. And I understand it. Like, these are the relationships that we go through. But I'll tell you something. In those relationships, until I decided to get healthy in my life, until I decided to build a firm foundation in my life, until I decided to follow God, until I decided to get clean and go to meetings and build relationships in the rooms, and learn to read, literature, and find out more about myself and and go to therapy. Until I became the healthiest version that I could become in my own life, nothing was going to become healthy or good in any relationship that I had. Sure, like, my relationships weren't completely negative. Some of my friends could probably vouch. They like, yeah, you was wildin'. And a lot of friends, a lot of good friends, close friends tell me, yo, hey, like, Yeah, you was an alcoholic. Yeah, you abused drugs. Yeah, you was violent and you did all these things, but I never seen that side of you. You know, you was never like that with me. And, you know, it just goes to prove the point of what I'm saying, that we all show a different face, or we're different people around different people. You know? And if you gotta be this thugged out gangster with a razor in your pocket and a screwdriver in the other, ready to wild out and flip out and fight and do all these things around certain people, then maybe you shouldn't be around those people. You know, if there's something that you gotta prove being around people, or you always, you know, listening to negativity when you're around certain people, like, yeah, maybe that's not a good place where you want to be. Because let me tell you, I could listen, but so much until it starts to infect me. Because what you listening to is going to pour in through your ear into your mind. It's going to spoil your heart. You know, and you have to really be careful in any relationship. You have to be careful. Like, what are you listening to? Who are you talking to every day? Who are you giving your access to, your time to? And who are you allowing in your life that you're speaking to them and you're accepting what it is that they're telling you in your life? And I really never understood that, because I was in the street, you know, and wherever I wind up staying for the night, wherever I was fortunate enough to stay for the night, you know, I just had to shapeshift to be easy, to sleep somewhere, to not sleep in the street, to, you know, to survive another night, another day. And you know, I appreciate everybody that helped me, that gave me a couch to sleep on, a space on the floor, allow me to eat dinner with their family. You know, to all the moms, to all the dads that accepted me being around. It's like, I didn't make it here alone. And that's why I would help anybody in any situation, as long as it's not gonna put me in danger or put me in a position where I'm gonna lose my sanity, or I might get locked up or something. And as long as it's not that, I would help anybody. I really would. And, you know, thank God for that. Thank God that my heart is tender enough, no matter what I've been through, the battle scars, the battle testing, and, you know, it was, you know, I was thinking about, like, I was thinking last night, I was talking to someone, and, you know, I was just, like, thinking of like, how many people helped me out, like, when I was, like, sleeping in the street. And people would come across me and help me for a couple of days, and that would just give me enough life to, like, make it through the next couple of days. And one thing I never wanted to do, though, I never wanted to, like, lay down and die. Like, I never wanted to give up. I always was like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna push forward. And, you know, like, some of the people that I was in the mud with, and maybe they weren't, maybe they had a good home life or anything like that. You know, a lot of the people in my life, they really never, like, told me, like, oh, you living the wrong way. They would say, well, if you want things to be better, then, you know, you gotta get better. Or, yo, you know, like, you're not doing that bad. Or, like, you fucking up. You need to get your shit together. Yeah. And that's why I love my friends, because they would tell me. You know, I have Roxanne coming to look for me through decop. I had to hide sometimes, or, like, give back the things I was selling, or put them away, because I didn't want nobody coming up to me while I was with them, and I would have to hurry up and leave off the block. She would come with her mother, And it was just some wild stuff, the way that I had to live in order to survive. I wasn't old enough to get working papers. At that time, you needed working papers and stuff like that. Like, the life I chose it wasn't a choice. It wasn't something that, I didn't choose that. I didn't wake up and say, hey, I want to be a thug in the street. It was the circumstances of my life, the choices that my parents made, the choices that my parents made. Like my grandfather beating my grandmother and my mom and my uncles and all this stuff, and that like pushed my mother into drugs and my uncle into drugs and all of this. And they grew up learning that, and they learned to be abusive. And I'm not saying that shit is okay by any means necessary, but there's not a lot of people that's familiar with therapy. There's not a lot of people that's familiar with anything that has to do with being healthy, because that's not what's promoted. What's promoted is medication. What's promoted is violence. What's promoted is rivalry. There's nothing that's promoted that say, yo, love. Just show love, and you're going to see the difference in how people respond to you in any relationship you have in your life. And even when I have turned the other cheek and I allow things to happen, or I say, you know what, I'm not going to be as hard as this person is. Even when I do that, people, you give them an inch, they want to take a mile. And it is so important in my life to have boundaries. It's so important in my life, in my relationships, to say, I will allow this to be, but only up to here. Only up to here. I'm willing to give that, but I'm not willing to give it all. In these relationships, you think that it's going to be the end of the world when they're over. The truth is, in life, the only person you're ever going to spend the rest of your life with is yourself. And until you do the work, go to therapy, start going to the gym, go to meetings, stop drinking, stop getting high. I don't know about you, I can't drink a little bit. I can't drink. I never said I'm going to drink a quarter of the bottle, then I'm going to save 75% of it because tomorrow's another day. Hell no. That whole bottle's gone. I'm an extremist. Anything I'm going to do, I'm going to do to the extreme. And I learned that about myself by looking at myself, by being aware of what it is and who I am and what I've been through and what has created me to be. And then choosing who I wanted to be, what that looked like, and how could I acquire that. And this is like, it's like writing a report. Like, these are the things, the same way you would write a report, or you do, you write about someone's autobiography, or you read about people in history, about things in history that have happened. The same way you go and you acquire that knowledge about all these things that are written in books, and you go and you find out key notes about what happened specifically, that you could come to your own conclusion about, and then decide how you feel about that. That's the same thing that you apply to your life. You look at your life and you see what's not working. You look at your life, you see what relationships are not working. And so many relationships, man, they've like some of my friends, man, some of my people that I'm like, they like my brothers, they like my sisters, and I don't know where I would be without them. I don't know where I would be without that relationship. I don't know, like, everything that's happened in my life, it was a stepping stone to get me to the next day, or the next week, or the next month, and without all the people together in my life that were a part of my life, that helped me out, that listened to me, that bought me something to eat, that gave me a place to stay, people that encouraged me, people that understood that the encouragement wasn't working and they cursed the hell out of me and told me, get your shit together, get your head out your ass, get your head out the dirt, stop doing drugs. You know, like my brother Elliot, like I remember one time, like I just couldn't stop. You know, like it was so hard to like just stop getting high. I'm over here popping pills every weekend, and it was, you know, it was that time, the early 2000s, and I'm like, it was a little before. It was a little before that, you know, like I had wicked thoughts of like hurting my own brother. Like I was like, oh, they ain't gonna let me hustle. I'm gonna do this. And you know, like he sat with me and he was like, yeah, you need to stop fucking getting high, because that shit is making you trip out. You starting to bug out, man. That shit ain't real. You know, like whatever you thinking in your mind, it ain't right. And I remember that conversation, and I was high at that moment. And then I realized that I needed to slow down, and there was so many things that happened in my life, so many intimate moments that I could remember that somebody took a minute, even when people were negative towards me and they just weren't feeling good about their lives, but they told me the truth about mine. And you know, like I would still hear people out. I would flip a lot of times, like, oh, stop judging me. Your life isn't perfect. That was me deflecting. And, you know, for the most part, I would listen. And I would hear and I would take people's criticism. Unless we didn't get along or we weren't friends. And then at that point, yeah, our fists were flying. I wasn't going to hear that from people that I didn't respect, and they didn't have a special part in my heart, in my life. And that's just the way it was. It ain't like that today, thank God. Today I could just walk away. But you know, back then was a different world. And constantly in our lives, in our relationships, we always gotta adjust. And you know, some people in your life for a season, for a reason, and then they leave. You know, and I was thinking about things, and maybe I need to look into it, but I was like, man, when it's really hot outside, the tree grows all these leaves. And I was looking at it, and I was just, you know, I'd be in thought in my own mind, and I'm like, why are those leaves there? And it gets so hot in the spring and in the summer. And I'm like, damn, those leaves gotta protect that tree from burning. And I was like, maybe that's the reason the leaves come in the spring and in the summer and then leave in the fall. And then come back next year to protect the tree and the branches and allow them to grow all over again. And I was like, man, I thought all of that without smoking or without being intoxicated. But it was, you know, it's just a lot of things that I think about. You know, I'm constantly thinking about, you know, how I could be a better friend, how I could be a better father, how I could be a good grandpa, and, you know, how I could, like, elevate my relationships. And, you know, I elevate my relationships by having clear communication, by talking about, like, where I feel I'm falling short, and where I feel I need to advance and where I need to get better. I talk about in my relationships where my shortcomings are, and like where I'm reverting back to something that I used to do a long time ago that never served me, and catching myself in real time. Saying, you know, apologizing when I'm wrong, and saying, hey, you know, I despite how I felt, I shouldn't have reacted like that. You know, and I'm sorry. I apologize. But for any of us, for most of us, we just don't know how to let the wound heal after you rip the scab off. Put antiseptic on that and just let it go. And that's okay. But how do you do those things? I tell you how. You know, how many people look for you in relationships? Or are you the bridge? You know, and I realized that I was just not feeling good. I'm always reaching out to a million people. You know, and a lot of times nobody even answers me. I send text messages. If I could send a carrier pigeon, I would. You know, if I could send the bat signal, I would send the bat signal. I would want to hang out with people. And the truth is, because I changed my life, I don't, what I do and how I live my life, it isn't the same. And I can't hang out with the same people that are doing the same thing that I did, 15 years ago. I'm not that same person. I can't maintain those relationships. I could see these people. I'm not going to judge anybody, but I could keep my relationship with you from a distance. I can't hang out with you every day if you're smoking weed. I'm going to catch a contact, and eventually I'm going to be smoking weed. I can't hang out with somebody that drinks every day, because I'll hang out with you, be moral support, but eventually I'm going to take a sip out the bottle. And they always say people, places, and things. And that goes for everything. It's not just drugs. People, places, and things for healthy relationships. People, places, and things when it comes to your professional career. At work, you want to probably be around motivated people that show up to work on time, that really have a craft and they know their craft, and you want to learn as good as them, so you be around that. And that's just a recipe for life. If you in a young marriage, or you want to get into a marriage, or you're getting into a marriage, you probably want to be around people that have a healthy relationship in their marriage, that have a healthy respect for one another, that hear each other out, and try not to argue in front of people. And it's not about living in secret. It's about respecting your partner, respecting yourself, respecting your marriage, respecting your relationship. Even with friends, there's certain friends that you talk about with things that you can't go and tell everybody about that relationship. And those are exterior, right? They're external. Those are relationships outside. But what about the relationship with you? What about your relationship with yourself? What about you knowing you need to get up off your ass and move your body because you don't feel good, but you don't do it? I know, because I did it for a long time. What about you not talking positive to yourself? What about you thinking that you're the worst of everything and that everything is your fault? And you want to, how about, my homegirls, their mothers, a lot of my friends, they want to carry their kids till the kids are 80 and they're 100 and they don't care. And I say there's nothing wrong with that, but them kids got to carry themselves. Some fathers are like that. They want to carry everything on their shoulders and they don't care. And they want to suffer in silence, man, and that's not what this is about. That's not why I do this. I do it so that I could express myself and hopefully encourage you in your own life to express yourself, because you're important. Everybody's important. Everybody deserves love. Everybody needs an ear. And there's nobody out here that's more important than the other one. No matter what our job title is, no matter how much weights we could lift, no matter how much therapy hours we got, no matter how much clean time you got, like, we all matter. All of us serve a purpose. All of us. That's why, like, believing in God and my higher power, like, it just changed my life. Like, things just all changed. But what are you gonna do about the relationship of you with you? How can you challenge yourself to be better for yourself? How could you stop making the same decisions over and over and expecting different results? How could you change things in your life to be someone that you could look in the mirror and feel proud of? How can you look at yourself in the mirror, even when you make a mistake, and still feel proud because you understood that you made a mistake? That's the biggest part of it, is understanding that we're going wrong, and then trying to make a deliberate choice, like a defining choice, and say, hold up, I'm going to stop here, I'm going to pump the brakes right here because I just did that wrong. Not just continuously just keep doing things wrong and doing them wrong and doing them wrong. If you learn to start stopping yourself, you learn to stop in the moment and don't let an avalanche of things happen. And then know that avalanche of things are there, and then just not change anything and just make it extremely difficult for ourselves. And then it's like forgiving yourself, which is one of the hardest things I know as a man for me. You know, I'll tell you about this thing and then I'll end this episode. I was talking to someone in the restaurant, I think, or somewhere, and I really can't recollect where. But I'll tell you something that it like touched me like deep. And the person said, oh yeah, next weekend it's Father's Day. Yeah, we don't expect there will be a large turnout. And I don't know why that hit me so deep, man, but I tell you what, this Father's Day, don't wait for anybody to celebrate you. Go and celebrate yourself. Go celebrate with another father. Go do something fun for you. Don't wait for anybody to give you balloons or cake or a party. A lot of times we wind up barbecuing our own Father's Day. Or we wind up going food shopping. And I'm not saying, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying let's boycott and say, oh, we ain't gonna. But you know what? If you want to do something that's going to make you feel good, do it for yourself. Do it because you love you. Do it because it's going to make you feel good. You want to buy yourself a hat. You want to go buy yourself, have a drink. You want to, go and do something that you've been waiting to do. If you don't make yourself a priority in your own life, then of course it's going to destroy you when nobody else makes you a priority in theirs. It don't matter if you've been married for 50 years, 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, 5 years. It don't matter. Don't expect anything. And you watch how that changes your life. Do it for yourself. Treat yourself good. And then in your process of going and doing something for yourself, you say, wait, you can't do that. We got something set up. Please give us some time. Sit down, relax. Let us take care of this for you. Then that's a beautiful thing. But you was in the process. That you was going to do something for you no matter what. And that right there is a beautiful gift that you could give to yourself. For Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, whatever it is, do something special for yourself. I don't care what day it is. Just do something special because you woke up this morning. And that in itself is a miracle. You know? And just love yourself and treat yourself how you treat other people. Love yourself and treat yourself in that way. Love yourself and be there for yourself the way you show up for other people. The way you sacrifice for other people, sacrifice for yourself. And know that that is okay. It's okay to be selfish sometimes. Here and there, sometimes once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Be a little selfish, do something for yourself. You know, in this world we always want to do everything for everybody else, and that's a beautiful thing. But I challenge you to do something for yourself. Do something that makes you happy, something that makes you take a deep breath and say, wow, this was nice. You know. Well, this is episode 19, talking about relationships. But ultimately, we're talking about the best relationship, which is your relationship with God and your relationship with yourself. And I hope and pray that you guys got something out of this. Please like, share, subscribe, and reach out to somebody and tell them you love them today. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. All right? Take care. And until the next episode, I believe the next episode, I want to record it with a good brother of mine, with Slick Rick. I already spoke to him. I already told him we're going to meet up. We're going to go over things. We're going to record an episode. I want to hear his story. It might be a 2-part episode. It might be a 3-part episode, depending on where the Spirit guides us and where the Holy Spirit decides to show up in our hearts at the moment. And we're going to dive into a lot of things that he's been through, and, you know, going off of like what I've done here, and it just gives people, like, you know, a choice where to move. And I'm really excited for that. And moving forward, I would definitely like to get with a lot of other brothers and talk about their story and get to know what it was that changed in their life that made them stop doing what they were doing and then to become the men that they are in the household they live in. And you know, I know you guys see me with these t-shirts, Stay in the Fight, Positive Vibes. I came across a gentleman that makes these shirts. I'll give all his information on the next episode. And basically, this gentleman that makes these t-shirts, he donates proceeds to like suicide prevention for men. And you know, when I heard that, I started buying the shirts, and I said, I need to, you know, help in that cause. And, you know, I'm not going to say what I paid for it, but you know what? I've spent money on a lot of things, but the gentleman that makes these shirts, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do for men's mental health, for suicide prevention, for fighting something, you know, like men. The suicide rate is like 90% of men. And, you know, that got to change, man. We got to talk to each other. We got to love each other. We got to be there for each other, man. We got to see the signs. We got to try to be more involved with each other and stop carrying the world on our shoulders. And anybody that needs to reach out, reach out. Anybody that needs to talk about it. Rather than hurt yourself, rather than do something that you can't take back. You know, you matter. We all matter. And, you know, let's try to share a little love to help the next person out. Man, woman, and child. All right. Thank you. Till the next episode. Look forward to it. I'm excited. And I think it's going to be something incredible. It makes my hair stand up. It gets me in a different zone. And I look forward to having you guys view that. Take care. Until the next time. God bless.